Hello, this is one of two videos to act as an introduction to the GISportal software built by Plymouth Marine Laboratory. This piece of software is an open source package that's available on GitHub. You can download it and install it yourself, and it's used for exploring and analysing geospatial data. Over the next 25 minutes or so, we're going to go through a number of tasks, and by the end of the session you should be able to find and load a number of different indicators and perform some simple analysis of those indicators, learn how to export data and add your own data. So we'll get started. This is the welcome interface. On the welcome screen you get a little message here and a button that invites you to start building a map. So if we click that, there's some terms and conditions which you need to agree to, and then we're presented with the map interface. So on the left hand side of the screen you have your main control panel, and here you'll see a text box that you can use for searching. You can decide how your indicators are grouped, and then there's a list of available indicators. So in this portal we're looking at long-term climate data records. So we have ocean colour and sea surface temperature. So expanding one of these drop-down lists will give us the available indicators that are within that category or indicator type. So we've got within sea surface temperature, we've got ice area fraction and water temperature. So to select an indicator, you click on it. Now there are different variants of this particular indicator, so at this point you get the opportunity to narrow down which one you want. So we say we'll go for monthly. So having made a selection, the data are loaded onto the map, and you can see in this panel here we've got the name of the indicator we've selected. There's a few buttons, we'll come to those in a second, a scale bar, and then in this lower section you can see a bit of information about who's produced the data, where they come from, what kind of temporal and spatial range they cover, and who to get in contact with if you've got any queries about the data. Along the bottom you've got a timeline, and you can use this to explore the data through time, either by dragging this lozenge button, or you can use a calendar on the left hand side and you can scroll through dates that way. So if we go back to this panel, these buttons here, we've got a toggle visibility button that decides whether the layer is visible or not. And then we have the layer settings tab. So this is where you can control the color scale, or the color palettes rather. So we've got a minimum and maximum scale values, whether or not to use a logarithmic scale, which this particular indicator does. You can set the scale values to whatever you want them to be. So for example, if you wanted to change this down to 50, you can do. You've got the ability to change the opacity of the layer. So this is useful when you've got more than one data layer on the map and you want to see the layer underneath the current one. You also have the opportunity to change the colour palette that's used. So for example, we can change the palette to a entirely green palette, when in this instance the darker colours are lower numbers and the lighter greens are higher numbers. The eye symbol gives you access to the layer information, which is the tab that you first are presented with when the layer loads. And then you have the analysis tab. This gives you access to the analysis features. We'll come on to those a little bit later. The final button is the dustbin, and that removes the layer from the map, which if you click, it takes us back to the default base map. The map. You then have a number of icons here. Now, working from this one is the collaboration tab. This is a feature that allows you to share a view of the portal with other people who are not necessarily in the same room as you, and you can both look at the same data at the same time. We'll come on to that a bit later on. The display settings tab gives you a number of options to change the way the map appears. So for example, if I take, I'm just going to hide it actually for now. I can change the base map. So there are a number of different types of base map available. So here you can change base map. There are a selection of base maps available. And just by selecting one, we'll change to the underlying map. And which one you pick really depends on what kind of use you have for the portal at the time. The one from EOX is a very simple one. It's a nice plain map that doesn't show too much detail, but it gives you an idea of which bit of the world you're looking at. The Stored Graphs tab will give you access to the plots that you've created through the Analysis tab. We'll come to that in a second. And then the User Dashboard, that will give you access to your user account details. And you've got the ability here also to hide the whole lot away, so you can see more of the map. In this section, we're going to have a look at some analysis that we can do with the indicators. So the first thing you need is an indicator loaded onto the map. So I'm going to search for chlorophyll, and I'm going to take the monthly data, and that'll load it onto the map. So the Analysis tab. What we have to do here is identify the region that we're interested in. Now there are several ways you can do that. The first way is to draw a polygon, either a regular polygon, where there's a nice regular rectangle, or an irregular polygon, which can be any shape you like. So if we draw a polygon as an example, so I can say this section of the Atlantic here, and that will put the bounding box of the coordinates of that bounding box in this text box here. Now, if you know the coordinates of the area that you want to use, you can enter the coordinates yourself here. And likewise, if I just tweak this slightly and update it, it'll change the area that's selected. Or I can draw a polygon freehand just by using my mouse and clicking, saying, okay, I'll take that area there. And again, in this text box, there is a geometry that describes that polygon. So with that selected, I can make one of a number of different types of plots. So at the top of here, I've got the opportunity to set the title. I can choose the graph type. So I've got time series, Hofmoller, scatter, geographic. I'll stick with time series for now. And you can choose a start and an end date. So at this point I click Create Graph, and what that will do is it will extract the data for the polygon that I've selected and produce an average over the area, and then give me a plot that shows me the average over time. So if I click Open, on my y-axis I've got chlorophyll concentration, and my x-axis I have time. And towards the bottom of the screen I've got some metadata that defines the data that I've extracted. So now I can use these tools up here to zoom in and out. I can hover over a point and it will give me the reading. And I can zoom a particular axis to accentuate certain features within the data. So once I'm happy with that, I can send that away by using the cross in the corner, or I can save it. So if you click on the save icon, that will allow me to save a PNG of the plot. So I'll send that away, and we can go back to the layer, and you can produce a different type of plot. So instead of a time series, this time we'll go for a Hofmoller. Hofmoller looking at latitude. So this is an average over latitude over time. So again, we select our start and end date and hit Create Graph, and that will take an average over each latitudinal slice over time and produce a plot. So in this case you can see this is useful for identifying seasonal variations in data. Okay, so other options for creating plots, you have geographic as well. So this takes the area that I've identified and produces an average over time, but plots it with latitude and longitude. So it's an image extraction, but it gives you an average over time. Now, one thing to note is this estimation here can sometimes be a bit optimistic, it can sometimes be a bit pessimistic, but it's trying to calculate how long it's going to take to produce or extract all the data and produce the plot. It will also tell you if you're trying to extract too much. So if you ask for too big an area, or you ask for too long a time frame, it'll tell you that you can't do it. So you have the resulting geographic or image extract plot. Another plot type we have available in the portal is a scatter plot. Now, a scatter plot allows you to plot two different variables against each other over the same time period and within the same bounding box. So on my portal at the moment I've got chlorophyll concentration. This is the daily version, so you can see I've got the interval set to daily there, and then further down this is using the green palette, so you can see it's on the top, and just down here I've got seawater temperature, which is also at the daily interval. So it's important you have the interval equal, so they can both be daily, they can both be monthly, or they can both be annual, but they always must be the same. So if we look at a section of the North Atlantic, so this bit up here, so we've got we can draw our bounding box. So I'll take a bounding box about there, and I'm going to add that to my plot. I'm going to change the plot type to scatter, and then I'm going to add my seawater temperature indicator and add that to the graph. So what's immediately happened here is the start and end times have been set to the maximum extent they can be for the indicators that I've got selected. So if you have a look on the timeline here, the chlorophyll concentration starts way back in 97 and ends in 2014. I've only got quite a small subset for the seawater temperature, so I've only got 2 years worth of data. So that's set the timeline here to the maximum it can do, so that I have both indicators available. So I start in the end of 2008 and go through to the end of 2010. Now, if we the other thing I can do that I haven't mentioned actually is you can type in this box. So if you want to be a bit more precise, you can be. So I'll say and when you type, the slide will move automatically. So if we take let's think about a 6-month period. Like so. So then I've got chlorophyll concentration on my x-axis and seawater temperature on the y-axis. Now you can change these around if you want to, of course. But of course they need to be on different axes. So once we're happy with that, we'll click Create Graph. And that will extract both seawater temperature and chlorophyll values for the selected bounding box and selected time, and then plot them together to produce a scatter plot. There we go. So if I click Open, I'll now get to see the resulting plot. So I've got seawater temperature in Kelvin on the x-axis and chlorophyll concentration on the y-axis, and lots of points. So for each point on this plot refers to one point in time. Now you can see I've got a reading for chlorophyll and sea surface temperature. So now we've seen how to make time series, Hofmoller, scatter and geographic plots all using polygons that you've drawn by hand or typed the geometry for in this box here. Now there is another way that you can specify the area of interest, but in order to get access to those you need to be logged in. So if I click the login button, that will prompt me for my Google account details. My email address and my password. And once I'm logged in, I have an additional set of options here. So I can upload a shapefile. Now the shapefile upload requires 3 files. It's the SHP, the SHX and the DBF files. All 3 of those need to be uploaded. Or you can upload you can add a GeoJSON, TopperJSON, KML file directly to the map by dragging it onto the map. So I have here a GeoJSON file. I'm just going to drag this and drop it onto the map. And what that's done, it's drawn a polygon on the map for me in the area that the GeoJSON describes. Now, I can then use that region in the same way that I could to produce plots, as we've already seen. The other thing that I can do is I can use this button down here, clear selection. That will take the dragged and dropped GeoJSON file off the map. I can again draw my own area of interest, and now next to the geometry text box I have a save button. So I can save that. I can say, let's call it South Atlantic. When I click submit, the details of that are saved with my account, so only I will be able to have access to that, and it's available to me in this drop down box here. So again, I can use, next time I come back to the portal and log in, this select option will be available to me and I can load that polygon straight back onto the map and use that for all of the analysis types that we've already seen. Now, one analysis type that we haven't seen yet is the transect plot, or a profile plot. And what this does, it takes points in time and extracts the data just at that point for that time. So to get access to this, you need a CSV file. Now the CSV file needs to contain 3 things: a latitude, a longitude and a date and time. So if you upload your CSV file, I'm going to upload files and I'm going to find my track CSV file and click open, and what that will do, it will read the CSV file and put a point on the map for each point in the CSV file. And what I can do is click on these points and it will give me the latitude, the longitude and the date and time value. Now with the CSV file uploaded, when I click make new graph, the only option available to me is transect, and I can only have one indicator for this type of plot, and there's no time bounds because the time bounds, or the time values, are bound to the latitude and longitude. So when I click create graph, what this does, it will extract the value for the indicator at each point in time for the CSV file that I've uploaded. So as you'll see here, I've got a latitude and longitude and a value for each entry in the CSV file.